a lot of stuff was thrown at teachers like, hey, here's what you're using, figure it out while you're teaching, while you're working from home, while you're, managing all these new things. Oh, and by the way, you also have to take care of your family too and worry about your kids and all that stuff and hold the line and still do the best job that you can. It's a
Right.
lot. It's a lot to ask from one human being.
And I'm glad you said that in that way, and I hope our listeners really hear that, because there's some environments where teachers are really being shut down and being criticized for not doing enough. And we had a whole session here talking about teachers that they are doing enough, that are not. I don't think a lot of people are really looking at, as you said, we're asking elementary age kids to do what we ask most seniors to do. I mean, most graduating high schoolers to do their first year of college.
Mm-hmm.
And I even say that to my sixth graders. I say, guys, the skills that you're learning right now in how to be autonomous learners, of how to go and find things and to log in and set your own schedule. I say, I was asked to do that, but I was 19 years old entering
Mm-hmm.
college. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a huge difference between you being 11 and 12 learning this now. I say, think about where you're going to be in 19. And I
Yeah.
think helping them see that you're gaining a valuable skill set that's going to help you so much further down the line. You're not even realizing how much more advanced you're going to be as a high school senior. I watch my own daughter, who our school, our middle school, our principal was pro technology
Mm-hmm.
when we first opened. His whole thing was, don't teach Wi-Fi kids with landline strategies.
Yeah.
He wanted everything to be on the computer, stop making so much paper copies, force the kids to get used to this. This was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so my daughter was there for the first 2 years of our school. So when she went off to high school, they were using the same program that we're using, but not a lot of the schools had been, using it appropriately or using it enough. And she was like, oh, I understand how to do this because, we did this in middle school. Oh, I understand this because we did it in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like she started to realize slowly that these are skill sets that I struggled with in middle school that I don't have to struggle with now because I've already been exposed to it. So think about these kids now coming out of COVID, going into high schools and going into, colleges. The sky is really going to be the limit to what they're going to be able to accomplish. And I said it the other day that I'm almost excited to be
Mm-hmm.
teaching at this time right now.
Well, you're setting these kids up to really flourish in, in a new type of economy. Because I think now that with people working from home, that's been a conversation that's been going on for decades. And I think now, we were forced to work from home and we saw that it worked and we don't need to have people physically in buildings and we don't need to have these set times, and for these kids to come out of school and say, bruh, I've been doing this for years and years and years. This is no factor, to be able to have a new workforce come out and say, hey, I can get work done. I am flexible. I can use all the technology you need. I know the systems in and out. And to have that ingrained in them is huge. Is huge. The responsibility part. I'm seeing second graders where the teacher pulls up, they say, okay, you have to, meet with us at this time. And you see kid. Like they're holding themselves responsible. They all pop in. I'm like, dang. I'm like, they all need to get like stickers or scratchy, sniffy stickers or something.
Right.
They should be rewarded for that stuff. I mean, even like with the kids, like when we hand out, like if someone forgets like a charger or a Chromebook, and we lend them one for the day, when they come back on their own and say, yo, dog, I got your charger for you. I'm like, thanks, man. I really, really appreciate that. And they're like, oh, okay, no problem. Like just to let them know, like, hey, that personal responsibility is huge, and that's what's going to carry you forward.
And it doesn't even phase them. They're just like, yeah, and I think that's so important. But thinking about what you said about how jobs are going to change, but I just think about like the opportunity, like if you were a small town kid like me, like small town Wisconsin, or you were living, somewhere in Jersey, or you were living up in upstate New York or wherever it was, like now in this new economy, you could, theoretically from Minnesota, I could apply for a job in New York if it was all virtual and not feel to have, that desire to or the need to have to move. I
Right.
feel like
Hmm.
that's such an incredible opportunity that these kids have. But from your private sector experience, especially in the technology space, you know, these skills that our kids are getting, where have you seen them, or where do you see them going in our economy, over the next 5 to 10 years? So how are these skills our kids are getting this year going to translate to jobs they may have in the future?
I mean, just basic stuff like, being on time. When there's a meeting that's set, be there, be early. I think like very fundamental stuff like that is going to be huge because it's going to, come off very well to, employers. Obviously, if they want you to be on time, if you can do that. If you're late to school, you're late to work. And I feel like a lot of these kids, they're holding the line with that stuff. So I think that's really good. But on, a broader scope, these kids are getting so used to technology, to typing, to adapting. Oh, we're going to use Zoom. Now we're going to move to Google Meet. Like using these different systems from different providers that are radically different and quickly adapting and learning. I think, that's a huge skill set, the adaptability part. And I think we're going to start seeing this more. Kids not necessarily knowing the answer to a problem, but knowing where to go to
Mhm.
resolve those issues. Because, as an employer, you know, I don't necessarily want to hire, the person who can do everything right out of the box. I want to find someone who says, "Hey, I don't know all the answers, but I know where to go for the solutions." And I feel like these kids are going to have that built into them because when they're home, doing their thing, there's no one there to help them and find the answer. If you can leverage the resources that are around you, whether it be the teacher, Google, etc., that's going to come in
100%.
amazingly, useful in any job. That's the thing about it. It's ubiquitous. It's across the board, no matter what you do, whether you're an NFL player or whether you're someone on the back end working, a network server or something like that. Like